Commencing with the next session. I would like to firstly thank Dr. Shashikala Gurpur for that excellent primer on climate justice law, policy and governance in India and EU. Thank you for sensitizing as well as stimulating all this further discussion and creativity that we are seeing on the walls, ma'am. The next session that we will continue with is on entrepreneurs in climate change and ESG training for business. Now, while our resource persons have notable contributions and achievement that run into pages, due to in the interest of time, we will be displaying the brief profile of the resource persons on the slides, and we will refrain from reading out the entire slide so as to afford more time to the resource persons themselves. So it is my honor now to call upon Mr. Shivam Singh, founder and CEO, Explore IT, National Coordinator for Youth Climate Reality Project India. And joining him will be Mr. Satya Natarajan, Director for Community Outreach at Explore IT, Lead Volunteer at Adar Poonawalla Clean City Initiative. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much, ma'am, for giving me an opportunity to be here and part of this gathering. So, just a brief background. Again, I'm an alumnus from Symbiosis only, and I have done my master's from XLRI. I pursued my MBA in HR, and while doing it, since I was into the field of research initially, and that led this journey of starting Explore It eventually. So this funny thing which I keep on telling, that the day I remember when I shared it with my family, so my parents went into coma that, you're starting a venture instead of going for a traditional job. And that's what I would like to, the slides are there, but apart from that, I would just simply explain my experience of starting this journey. Sustainability, as we all know, is the future. Anything and everything which you are planning, and all the fields. One word which I avoid using is environmentalist, because I don't believe in such a concept, because for all of us, being a lawyer, doctor, management professional, anyone, we all are inhaling the same air, we are sufferers of the same bad air quality. So how I can be an environmentalist and a doctor is not, or an engineer is not? So initially when we started, Explore It, I started in 2017. We were more of an activist, you can say like an activism forum, where we were working with the community to raise awareness about the climate change. But there the business, that business proposal came to our mind, because there was a huge gap. There are corporates who are ready to contribute to the society. There are good people with expertise on the ground. There are students who are eager to learn and contribute. So we have a stakeholder map, which everyone is willing to do, but no one is taking that step of integration. So that's what we did at Explore It, and we started with, let's say we'll integrate all the stakeholders. So right now there are 3 verticals in which we operate. So one is the community outreach, where we operate as a non-profit with a separate name of Climate Troopers Foundation, where we are working with Symbiosis, MIT, Ferguson College, Bharati Vidyapeeth, almost all 14 universities over here in Pune itself, where we take care of their community outreach aspect and the CSR aspect. Second, which is our main vertical, which has started recently, we are ideating, presenting, curating, and executing projects for corporates, and that is where our business is coming from. Right now, if I have to tell you figure, which my business partner will not let me, because we are in the funding phase, but I'll still give you the figures, because I really want the students to have a look at the numbers. So I started Explore It with a fund of, let's say, 25,000 rupees way back in 2017, almost 7 years back. And we have received our first valuation, which is at 60 CR, without investing any single penny, without taking anything from my parents. So, and there are 3 agencies which are going to fund us, including one of them is an international fund, which is going to help us to scale our operations. And we are looking to cross our numbers in next 3 years with an annual turnover of approximately 300 CR. So, 3 years back, I never imagined that I'll be talking about numbers, I'll be talking about CRs, and but then it is necessary to create the social capital. Just imagine, uh, you have done MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, and you have a package of, let's say, 50 lakhs. I mean, for you to start with it, and you will say that I will start something of my own. Your pay, I mean, again, the Indian education system and the Indian, I'll say, parent psychology still will not allow you, because you have some responsibility. And again, we are a conservative society. That is, I mean, still we are. So how will we create that social impact environment? That is something which I think is a joint responsibility of everyone. I'll tell you quick examples how we are making money. So all the campuses, when we were doing the green audit, we identified that there is a vendor which comes to the college, takes all the stuff away from the college, and college is paying money to that particular vendor. What is happening to that? So PET bottles, he sells it. Thermocol, he burns it. Clothes, he burns. I mean, because for them, the financial viability is such that. So what we are offering, so we have created this RRCs into a business model where we map recycler for every waste. So if I have to give you just a number, again from Symbiosis, old Vimanagar campus, so they were paying money to a vendor to take away the waste. We reduce the number to 0. Every single day we generate the waste worth 2,500 se leke 3,500 rupees, which is almost, let's say, 90,000 rupees per month. Even if you are considering a conservative number, it will come down to 60 to 70,000 rupees, where you can hire a person for segregation, and you will still have a pure profit of not less than 30,000 rupees. And what we are doing nothing. We are the, how we say that, we are the social impact aggregators. And this is why sustainability has that potential. PET bottles, I mean, with Aadhar Poonawala Clean City initiative, they are converting them into t-shirts, something which we are talking about, the circular economy. Without promoting PET bottles, still we are using it, because at times it's really difficult for you to manage it without plastics. That is something which we all have to agree upon. So these ideas, during our inception years, we were really focused on biodiversity conservation. As sir mentioned about the 8 trees, what we need for every person, we have a business model for it. You want to plant 8 trees per employee, we'll identify the spot, we'll give you the spot, we'll plant it, we'll maintain it, you pay us the money. And that's where the money will generate. And what I have experienced is, any idea, if it is something which is not fitting the business cycle, will be of no use. So the feasibility of the idea is really needed, but if idea is not generating something where people have their interest, so at times you will see that it will go away. I'll just quickly give you an example of the cultural feasibility of the solutions. We all have seen edible cutleries. At least we must have seen it or heard it somewhere. Edible cutleries, why they have not reached at our home or maybe in our offices or colleges yet? Because if you look at Indian context, Indian society, just imagine you are having a pani puri outside, and then you start eating the plate. I mean, culturally, it looks odd, and that's why the scaling up of that particular solution is not so great. Instead of that, you can just have a steel plate. I mean, there was someone who said that we have this business proposal, we would like to go ahead with bamboo straws, right? I said, good idea. But the thing is, most of the drinks where you are looking for a straw, we can just have it without the straws. So the best solution is, at times, in terms of carbon emissions, at times, maybe we are not looking at it. So that's the problem. And one more thing, when it came down to the problem, I mean, there was one famous line which was propagated during the COVID, how you can convert crisis into an opportunity. Aapada ko avasar mein badalna. But not only for your profits. That is what the ESG is, and I'll come to that. People, they don't have last mile connectivity from here till Ramwadi. Ramwadi may we have a metro station, but how will I travel from law school to the from there? So can we create a ferry system? Can we create, let's say, a shuttle bus, which is my business? Now this is how you convert a crisis into an opportunity. It's not about distributing electric air purifiers. That is, again, something which I don't consider it as a proactive step. We have areca palms, we have money plants, keep them inside your house. They are better air purifiers. So this is what the scope is in terms of entrepreneurship when it comes down to the climate change. Each and everything, and I can tell you that even if you all, I'm pretty sure that most of us are following Shark Tank, India at least. So if you look at the startups, at least I have found out the profiles, and I can say that 50% of them are related to sustainability. At least there is an angle of sustainability in almost half of the startups that are getting pitched. So that is the thing. Even being part of, let's say, you're focusing on CFA, you're practicing law, you can still come and ideate and come up with a solution, which will definitely have higher business yield. Now coming down to ESG, I'll remind you of some classic examples. So there was a scandal, I think in 2004 about Nike. Anyone remember that? So basically there was a report which came down and said that they're employing child labor, and there was a huge boycott by the entire country over the Nike products, and then they had to come up clean on that part. Then I think we all can relate with the Maggie incident that happened. It went out for the market for almost 2 years. Apart from that, just quick, there's one case study which I can tell you. Right now, Bangladesh is hub for textile manufacturing. If you look at in Indian currency, the average pay that they're getting is almost 40 rupees per day, 50 rupees per day for almost working for 1 day. Now their GDP is growing because the money is coming in, but at what cost? And then there was a classic example by PepsiCo. So in Ambegaon area, in majority of the places in Maharashtra, they have their own variety of potatoes, which are meant for Lays. So they were giving it, and some of the farmers sold the same product to the free market, and then they went to the court. They put since they had a clause that you can't sell it in the open market. But then this is one thing. Now, if you look at all these cases, what all comes down to your mind? And that, because of that, ESG is the background for each and everything. I'll give you one more example of on the positive side. So do you all know this brand Usha? Usha is a big brand. It's a very old brand. So they ran a campaign with NDTV. So what they did, and it created a huge impact on their sales. So what they did, they identified places where women, especially 30 plus women, they had no job. They went there, distributed free of cost sewing machines. They trained them, they provided them a market, and after that, they converted that into a CSR opportunity for corporates. So corporate paid money to Usha to give this thing to the women. Skill India, like a typical skill development or capacity building exercise. Same thing Dettol did when they collaborated with Swachh Banega India way back, in 2011 when they started. And if you look at the numbers after that in terms of brand visibility, without paying a single money for branding and marketing, which other companies are doing for their advertisement, they got their limelight in a good way. And I also want to just quote the example of Serum, where they're working extensively with the transgender community. So ESG is all about, you cannot have your profits without acknowledging the immediate society that you are working in. I should not be held responsible. I should not be inhaling the bad air because there's a chemical company who is producing in my nearby vicinity, because maybe they're providing us the job, but at what cost? That will always be the question. And that's why it gave, since 1960 only, this trend of, framing out the ESG policy started coming up. So ESG, if I have to explain it to you, it's basically environmental, social, and governance. And they are disclosures. So ESG is not like a law where you have to follow certain things. It's all about how an investor will look at a company. If let's say there is a huge scam about some company, it's in the newspaper, maybe you will stop buying that particular stock for that particular company. Same thing happened with IRCTC. Again, a classic example. You all should go back and read about it. In 2010 and 11, where they're almost serving in 90% of the trains, the contract was removed because the quality was so bad, and there were some scandals which came, like they're using old products and things like that. So in the environmental part and the social part and the governance part, whatever measures you are adopting, whatever the policies are there, whatever good things that you are adopting, you need to mention it through the reporting. And then there are certain standards, in terms of reporting. So there are agencies which help you to disclose your policies. So there's a funny definition. I was attending a session, and there they showed us, what companies are doing with the ESG right now. So I'll just read out a statement. It says that exquisite quinoa pilaf infused with an array of mixed vegetables, delicately spiced and harmonized with medley of fragrant herbs, creating a wholesome and satisfying culinary symphony, a gastronomic delight bursting with flavorful elegance. So basically it's khichdi, right? So the policy disclosures, so it's like I'm disclosing my policy. So this is what is happening. And here, again, when it comes down to the entrepreneurship, it's like, especially in the E and the S part, you have a huge potential. You have a huge potential when it comes down to the, making sure that your environmental standards are going up. 10 days back, we got a call from a company who got their CSR triggered because they were reporting and the numbers went up. So they had a penalty of 2 years that they didn't notice in their reporting. So they said, we really want you to do one thing, just take this check and give us a certificate, that's it. And if you all follow the CSR laws, right now the CSR rules are so strict that you can't do it. Donations cannot be part of the CSR. If you are building a temple in your village, it will be part of your philanthropy, not the CSR, because CSR has their own impact reporting, KPIs. So we told, it took 30 minutes to explain to that person that it's not just about the money, it's also about the impact that you will create. And that's why this entire thing comes up in the public domain, where we need to create more awareness and more sensitivity towards ESG, especially in terms of our social governance and inclusion part of it. So ma'am mentioned about water refugees. There are already water refugees which we have identified way back in 2018. So Colonel Dalvi, who is like a senior professional working in the field of rainwater harvesting, recently he changed the structure of 100 villages by putting up a RWH structure, and they all went tanker free as acknowledged by the Jila Parishad. Now the interesting part is, when we went for a survey and we asked them, ki what is one change that you are realizing in your village after this rainwater harvesting thing is done and now you have more water. So the lady said कि अब हमारे गांव में ना शादियां होने लगी हैं, because previously just by listening to the name of that particular village, no one used to marry their daughter to that village. And again, so these are the things which comes down to human rights, social inclusion, diversity, so all of that. And when it comes down to taking action, integration in entrepreneurial ventures, one thing which I can also tell you on behalf of the corporates, that they're eager to work, but most of the times they are not guided properly. Their experiences with NGOs are at times not so good, and NGOs also need fund to run. Corporates have that fund. They would like to claim the fund, but the thing is, then they have their own parallel ambitions as well, which needs to be also acknowledged by the firm. And that's why, at least at Explore It, what we do is we try to make sure that we are that aggregator and we are that platform which is helping these corporates to get their parallel ambitions get fulfilled. At the same time, what is the most important part of the money that is getting spent? That we are creating the social impact. If the impact is there, we all will be in a very win-win situation. Knowledge basis is also something which we really want to focus in terms of capacity building, and that's why the role of such training programs becomes so crucial. I was giving my interview for UPSC in 2019 February. So that particular day, there was this some interviewer was there. So she saw my profile, and it has a lot of mention about climate change. I have represented in COP21 that happened in Paris. I was working with Ministry of Environment earlier. So she said that you guys keep on talking about climate change, global warming, but this is freezing outside. And that day it was raining in Delhi, and the temperature was actually around 6 or 5. So I said, if you're talking about global warming, where it is? And then I explained this in one line. Global warming is not about only the temperature increase. It also means the irregular temperature pattern. But again, that person, I'm not naming her, but again, people sitting at such higher responsible positions are also not sensitized about the topic properly, the scientific knowledge about it. For example, I always tell, use a plastic bag if it is getting used again and again and again, because the water cost of a paper bag is much higher. So please avoid paper bags. So this is kind of capacity building which needs to be done. And I really hope that such training programs and the trainees from this session who will become trainers eventually will take this forward and will see this as an opportunity. And we will have a society which is much more sensitized, and the word which will make the difference is the empathy. So we all should, through our training programs and sessions, we should make sure that we are creating a society which is more empathetic towards in anything and everything that is surrounding us. So that's it from my side, and I'll invite Satya sir to take it over from here. Thank you so much.
So thanks, Shivam. So everything is in Google. There is no need for me to stand up here and talk about a technical topic. But I'll just give you from a grounds up approach as to what is the experience, how we can relate to ESG and budding lawyers, budding professionals, be it from finance or law, or for that sake management. It's a potpourri of every of these coming together. Since it's a law school, I just want to take it up from that footprint and take it to the carbon footprint. As on today, if you see approximately 5 crore of cases are there lying in the courts. That means, as per some estimates, it will take up till 2027 for even delivering judgments, not even justice. So there is a thin line between delivering a judgment and delivering a justice, right? So we have enough task at hand if we all have to settle everything through courts. So for the law students, you have enough job, but we have parallelly more backlogs outside the courts that we need to take care. So that is the plight of the cases around it. And if you see what are all the patterns of these cases that are coming out, is like, as ma'am said, some of the court cases are basically somebody killing somebody else over dispute over water, soil, dispute over something else, right? It's not just about road widening alone. So let's get that point straight across. So we see these kinds of irregularities breeding from inequality, breeding from non-social inclusions, and so on. Now, take it to the larger context of what it all fits into the global context, and then I will come and make a short hint on ESG. I was one of the non-CEO speakers in a leadership forum at COP28, right? Everybody was talking about certain problems with faces CEO. So, and if you see, it is like a street fight, frankly speaking. आपको cycle track चाहिए और पेड़ चाहिए. Like typical university road, if you say take in Pune, there is a lineup of trees on the sides of the road, and then somebody is trying to propose a cycle track. Yes, great, but it comes at the cost of cutting a tree. Okay, so what people say is like, tree has been always there, it is an entitlement, we need to have it. Somebody says like, transportation is a major sector for contributing towards pollution, so we are advocating people to take a cycle, and then for cycle to run you need a track, and there is no other place, we will take a track. So then, as rightly ma'am said, it is about two laws conflicting with each other. And then what do you do about it? You have a law, you have enough law, you have enough court cases. Now in between that there are two laws which are contradicting over each other, right? Same way, this is a street fight in Pune, right? Whether we should clean the river or if we should beautify the river, right? That's another classic case over there. But take this problem, map it to a global level. It's called a world street fight. Okay, so the north says that, you know, you guys south have to, you know, learn from our mistakes, right? Yes, we are, our hands are dirty, but the thing, you know, we have done it earlier and we are knowing what is the problem. Now it's your time to learn the best practices from us. And then the south says, right, yes, fair enough, we will take all the right lessons from you because you are ahead of us as a developed country, which means you went from a developing country to a developed country, so it's fine, we will take all the learning best practices from you, but give us time, give us technology. Don't mint on us, right? So you really see CEOs talking about abatements and non-abatement areas or industries, and then saying that, hey, you know, there is a social responsibility because you need to carry the developing nation along with you to become a developed nation, and you just can't force throat on us. Now you see the social angle of it. It is a street fight between two causes, and then you take it between two communities, and then you take it at the world stage, it is between the north and the south. The problem doesn't change, the context change. The problem is the same. It's a fight of conflicting ideas of what we develop and what we don't develop. So then, who creates that balance? On one side, business, on one side, community, on one side, nature or environment. Then who holds the balance? You can't say be like a tree and stay grounded with the roots. When you are in the mid of an ocean, right? In the mid of an ocean, you talk about anchors. You don't talk about roots, right? The past, the present, and the future. Somebody wants to, you can't halt an aeroplane midway because it pollutes, right? So, if you see the energy industry, they come and says, hey, now it has become a fun fact that, you know, you keep bashing us for all the good things that we did. You are bashing us only for the bad side effects. You are not praising us for the good things we did. So typically, my view here is to give you both the perspective. 90s, from where half of the world population was under poverty. Okay? Now, with 20% X growth, the population has gone, but the national or the world's poverty is around 10%. They call it in a different term, right? Food affordability or food insecurity or security of it. So energy has played a very important part in not only the then 90s, half the percentage of the poverty is eradicated. With a growing population, we were able to get it not only accordingly half the population, but at 10% of the population. Even in America, you have 10% to 11% food insecurity. So it's not about developed nation or developing nation, but you see the concept of sustainable taking people along and solving the problems of yesterday, today and tomorrow. Someone has to foot the bill. You call it carbon footprint, water footprint, or whatever it is. Someone has to foot and maintain the balance. So what has happened is that unless people warm up to the need other than their daily needs of food, shelter, and other basic things, and mobile, of course. So they have to warm up. Then the facilitation by the government in terms of the policy, and the business who runs business models, products and services. So earlier, this concept, primary driver being the businesses, were said that you need to have a harmony, not about your value to the stakeholders or the shareholders. So the bottom line was finance. Now you have a 3-point bottom line. What it says to all the businesses is that, hey, you are making a change, you are transforming the world, good, you are taking people along, but you know, you need to not just take your shareholders' value alone as your bottom line, which is finance, but also take social responsibility and the governance of it. Environment, social, governance. So they talk about triple bottom line now. It is almost a mandate within inside to look at triple bottom line. So now, what all these things surfaces to a law student like you or a management professional like you is that environment cannot talk for itself. So there are laws laid out, please follow, comply. At least comply first. Okay, then social equity or equality, whatever you call, they say that it is coming in the range of what kind of people you'll employ, what kind of local community you serve, and stuff like that. And then if you ask somebody to go out and play, everybody will have an excuse for not playing in the rains. Let's say take a football. Some chap comes in and say like, bhai, aa jao. Ye do aa gaya. Then 4 other people follow. Then 5 other people follow. We call them at street smart leadership. The same street fight and street smart leadership is what is at the corporations. Corporations in the sense that the businesses. So if you say take a business as an entity, there are 2 levels that I want to talk here. One is the CEO category, another is called as a board of directors category. So while the CEO is like running a fast Ferrari, right? Is like almost like I want to make it fast, I want to give shareholders the value, I want to go and transform the world at the quickest pace because every quarter I have been on the tender hooks. Okay, so there are possibilities of these CEOs and the leadership doing so many things which is not sustainable for quick gains. So then what has happened is that then there was an imperative need that leadership should also be taught. So what they did was that they brought in the governance aspect of things, saying that in the boards not only appreciate CEOs and the leads that they are taking, but is it sustainable in these areas? So which means the ESG, not only in terms of reporting, but it also emphasizes board of directors to look and evaluate projects on the future of the company, not from a perspective of risk mitigation, but also in the position of the future of the company. Because as you see, many organization movements are coming in NGO, all community-led movements are coming in. So it is not about how quickly you make money quarter to quarter. Once you come and reach a position of comfort, a small silly thing can take your complete company down. A CEO can survive, a board can survive, the company reputation cannot survive. So there is an imperative need about environment, sustainability, like people, planet and profit, and they also related to the purpose of why that company exists at all. So in a layman's term, ESG is all about a triple bottom line that focuses on these individual companies through way of law, through way of social, and also governance of the board. That comes into this picture and is becoming an imperative part of every organization. So what is the takeaway? Now, the community has to be taken along. It's a very difficult job. Even if you outsource something to an NGO to take a community along, there are 7 times it can fail. So it is going to be a very hard exercise. So what we do is that engage the stakeholders as a part of the dialogue, hear their problems. Yes, there will be 70% of it you have to still keep running the business, but the thing is that 30% comes in, right? In that way, if you see what is the potential of this market, because everybody talks in terms of business nowadays, $60 billion by 2027 is just the need of the market that can train people on ESG. That's the potential. Like how education institutions are there to roll out 4 lakh engineers per year, and that the engineers go and serve their purpose earning money. ESG is a $60 billion industry and you have 5 years to capitalize on it. If you would have started in 2022 or yeah. So within 5 years, there is a potential of $60 billion. Like how education institutions prepared people for job. Now ESG professionals are preparing for the jobs of these businesses and what they should do. So importance is felt. So in a nutshell, just give me another minute, is that there are so many problems to solve in the world, not just through the legislation and the courts, which has cases up till 2027, but you have another side of it, which is a huge potential to educate people, warm them up, as on also make money and put food on the table of your house, and then underlying the 3 principles of ESG, for which I would commit through Shivam that I will give you 2 case studies which is available public. One is a Wharton's case study, another is a Harvard case study. Just go through it and see the context on which these concepts breed. So we will take up and do some offlining, but at the end of the day, it's all about taking people along with you, either in the leadership category or the communities you serve or the environment you belong to. So with this brief common man's version of ESG, hope to connect with you if you have any questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and to Mr. Shivam as well for that address on business and management angles and for those compelling figures that really cause us to think about the ESG, even in terms of ESG-based education. Thank you very much for your inputs. Moving forward to cover and to address us on the session on practicum environmental hearing, which is reading the environmental impact assessment report and participating in hearing, I would like to once again call upon Dr. Shashikala Gurpur to lead us in this session.
So before I start my session, thank you all for those wonderful concept mind maps. And secondly, I thank Mr. Shivam as well as Satya sir for such a clarity on ESG. Because ESG is 30-hour or 15-hour course material when we have to teach. And then as Satya gave a very good conceptual basis, that it is something that is beyond the codes. Means what does it mean? It means that corporates themselves will have to comply with it. It is an internal compliance. In many companies, they have separate department which looks after this, and ESG is, they have to file many compliance reports. And this is one part of their big compliance report. So you must have made a connection, but let me also tell you that in social governance, for example, which may be little outside, जो ESG का ESG, E माने environmental, S माने social and G माने governance, उन्होंने clearly बताया सब कुछ. ये social में कभी कभी उसके अंदर कैसे अलग अलग लोगों को ट्रीटमेंट किया कर जाता है, ह्यूमन राइट्स बोलते हैं हम, किस किस के राइट्स को वायलेशन करते, वो भी नहीं करना चाहिए. वो राइट को प्रिवेंट, राइट वायलेशन प्रिवेंट करने को, वो राइट को प्रोटेक्ट करने को क्या मेजर लिया, वो भी उस कंप्लायंस रिपोर्ट में बताना पड़ता है. सो इट इज़ प्रिवेंटिंग, प्रोटेक्टिंग, रेमेडिंग, ये फ्रेमवर्क है. ये फंडामेंटली विश्व संस्था के इनिशिएटिव से ये फर्स्ट आ गया रग्गी रिपोर्ट के फॉर्म में, और उसके बाद ऐसा कॉरपोरेट्स ने इसको ये तरीके में कन्वर्ट किया, so that an external enemy attacking them will be bad, so they better be alert. And as he said, little risk is enough to kill the whole kingdom. So this is how it is a precautionary measure as well. Environment के मामले में, climate justice के मामले में आपत्ति आने के बाद रिस्पॉन्ड करने से आपत्ति को रोकना बहुत बड़ा अच्छा रिस्पॉन्स है. सो इट्स अ, वी ऑलवेज यूज इन आवर रिसर्च ऑल्सो प्रिकॉशनरी अप्रोच, पहले ही उसके बारे में कॉशन लेना, बिकॉज देयर इज ए ह्यूज रिस्क. नाउ वी आर कमिंग टू एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट. एंड इन एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट अगर आप सोचे तो EIA, ये क्या होता है ये EIA माने अगर एक बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट आ रहा है आपके एरिया में, तो वो प्रोजेक्ट फीजिबल है क्या बोल के एक रिपोर्ट आता है. हम फिजिबिलिटी के टाइम क्या क्या देखते, कॉस्ट देखते, उधर उसके लिए मार्केट है क्या देखते, उसका कोई लोग उसको अपोज कर रहे हैं क्या देखते. लेकिन एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट में एनवायरनमेंट को ही एक फैक्टर बना के उसका असेसमेंट चलता है. इस प्रोजेक्ट इधर चलने से इधर का एनवायरनमेंट पर क्या इम्पैक्ट होगा. सो दैट इज द रिपोर्ट दैट इज मैंडेटरी बिफोर अ प्रोजेक्ट इज टेकन अप. तो ये एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट रिपोर्ट कौन करते, क्यों करते, कौन सा कानून के अंदर करते. एनवायरमेंट प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट के अंदर ये रिपोर्ट के बिना आपको परमिशन नहीं मिलेगा कुछ भी एस्टैब्लिशमेंट करने को. अभी हम सोच रहे हैं क्लाइमेट जस्टिस, आप लोग क्लाइमेट जस्टिस सोल्जर्स होंगे, तो आपके तरफ से हम रिपोर्ट क्यों चाहिए, रिपोर्ट में कैसे लिखना चाहिए रिपोर्ट को, वो ट्रेनिंग हम नहीं दे रहे. रिपोर्ट को पढ़ना कैसा, जो रिपोर्ट सरकार के हाथ में जाने वाला रिपोर्ट है या ऑलरेडी गया है, वो आजकल इतना स्ट्रिक्ट रूल है कि इट शुड बी मेड अवेलेबल टू पब्लिक, और आपका ओपिनियन उसके लिए पूछते, वो किसी को ऑब्जेक्शन है तो वो ऑब्जेक्शन ले सकते. ऑब्जेक्शन खाली भेजना नहीं, आप अकेले ऑब्जेक्शन भेजे तो वो डस्टबिन में डालते या इग्नोर करते। तो एक ग्रुप बना के, एक स्टेक होल्डर ग्रुप बना के वो रिपोर्ट को चैलेंज करना, वो चैलेंज करने के बाद वो लोग एक हियरिंग को रिपोर्ट फिक्स करते, क्योंकि अंडर द रूल पब्लिक हियरिंग मस्ट। तो वो हियरिंग को प्रिपेयर करना कैसे, उधर क्या क्या चलता है, एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट, हियरिंग, कौन हाउसिंग कॉम्प्लेक्स का सभी सुवेज मूलामुत्तर रिवर में जाने का आप देख रहे। सो आप एक ऐसा वॉलंटियर है, तो आप उसके बारे में ऑब्जेक्शन पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड को लिखते। पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड हैज़ द पावर टू इमीडिएटली स्टॉप इट, टू इमीडिएटली प्रिवेंट इट, बट अपने आप वो वो गवर्नमेंट का बॉडी है, सो पॉलिसी के ऊपर वो काम कर सकता है। तो वो बिल्डर सोसाइटी को नोटिस देते हैं, बिल्डर सोसाइटी डजंट केयर। तो क्या करते हैं हम, नेशनल ग्रीन ट्राइब्यूनल में जाते, उधर से एक स्टे ऑर्डर ले आते, उससे वो स्वेज छोड़ने का काम बंद होता है। बट इस स्वेज इमीडिएटली वो छोड़ने का बंद करेंगे, लेकिन उनको भी एक ऑल्टरनेटिव चाहिए ना। तो उन्होंने वो बिल्डिंग में वो रेगुलेशंस फॉलो किया कि नहीं, ये सब अनेक अथॉरिटीज़ के अंदर ये आता है। कैसे उनको परमिशन पहले दिया गया म्यूनसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन से, अगर उन्होंने स्वेज ट्रीटमेंट नहीं लगाया तो आजकल मैंडेटरी है सिटी एरिया में STP लगाना। तो ये कंप्लायंसेस अनेक डायरेक्शन से आ सकते, लेकिन हम उसको ये डायरेक्शन से सोच रहे हैं कि वैसा हियरिंग को हम अटेंड करने के लिए प्रिपरेशन कैसा करें, एक एनवायरमेंटल असेसमेंट रिपोर्ट कैसा दिखता है। आप सबके लिए हम सर्कुलेट करेंगे एक सैम्पल रिपोर्ट, आप वो सैम्पल रिपोर्ट का पार्ट्स देखना पड़ेगा। तो क्विकली आई विल टेक यू थ्रू द स्लाइड। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, इन ए रियल वर्ल्ड सेटिंग, सच्ची निजी दुनिया में कैसे ये प्रॉब्लम आता है वो देख लेंगे। फिर हमारा जो थियोरेटिकल अंडरस्टैंडिंग अब है पोल्यूशन के बारे में, एनवायरनमेंट के बारे में, वो सोचेंगे। और उसके बाद उसके लिए एक वो हियरिंग में जाने का प्रिपरेशन कैसे करेंगे। इट्स नॉट वर्किंग, बैटरी इज डन, इज इट? सो यू टेक द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। ओके, सो ये इसको हम प्रैक्टिकम बोलते हैं, वेयर यू लर्न बाय डूइंग, लर्न बाय एक्चुअल एक्सपीरियंस। तो इधर आप रिपोर्ट को पढ़ने का काम करते हैं एक टीम में बैठ के, और एक उसका फ्लॉज निकालते, क्या इसमें करेक्टली देखा नहीं गया। थर्डली, आप अपनी जो नॉलेज है उसको उधर अप्लाई कर सकते हैं। फिर उसका एप्लीकेशन, उसका ऑब्जेक्शन लिखना कैसे, उधर जाके बात कौन करेगा, वो बात करते टाइम एड्रेस कैसे करेंगे उनको, फॉर्मुलेशन कैसे करेंगे, कौन सा प्रोविज़न, कौन सा कानून के अंदर या रूल के अंदर उसको बिठाएंगे, कैसे उसका कंक्लूजन करेंगे। फिर रिटर्न कॉपी किसको सबमिट करेंगे, एक्नॉलेजमेंट ले लेंगे, और वो पूरा करने के बाद अगर एक्शन नहीं हुआ तो फॉलो अप लेंगे। दिस इज़ प्रैक्टिकम, दिस इज़ एप्लीकेशन ऑफ द नॉलेज। तो ऐसे हियरिंग में क्या होता है, पूरा लोग साथ में आएंगे और वो डिस्कस करेंगे, वो अधिकारी उनको सुनेगा और वो अधिकारी से वो सवाल पूछेंगे, देखो ये प्रोविज़न है, ये प्रॉब्लम है, ऐसा इसमें कॉन्सिक्वेंस हो सकता है। अभी हम आपको बताएंगे, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आपको रिसर्च करना पड़ेगा उसके कनेक्टेड कानून के ऊपर। सेकेंडली, आपको उसको प्रिपेयर करना पड़ेगा एक स्ट्रक्चर्ड। उसके बाद वो हियरिंग का डेट लेके उस दिन जाके उधर ग्रुप में पार्टिसिपेट करना पड़ेगा। उसके बाद उसका उधर एक डॉक्यूमेंटेशन फाइल करना पड़ेगा, अपने आप भी उसका कॉपी रखना पड़ेगा, फिर टाइम टू टाइम उसका रिव्यू करना पड़ेगा। हाउ डू यू रीड एन एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट रिपोर्ट, जो रिपोर्ट सबमिट होता है गवर्नमेंट को, उसको हम पढ़ेंगे कैसे। तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल हम इश्यू आइडेंटिफाई करना है। वो एनवायरमेंटल असेसमेंट रिपोर्ट में हम कौन कौन सा असेसमेंट देख सकते। अभी हम एक प्लांटेशन लगा रहे एक जगह में, एग्रीकल्चर का एक बड़ा सेटअप लगा, नहीं तो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडस्ट्री लगा रहे, या तो एक टूरिज़्म का प्रोजेक्ट हम लगा रहे। मैंने बोला ना, सुंदरबन में अगर कोई गेस्ट हाउस बनाया तो वो गेस्ट हाउस बना के जो स्ट्रक्चर है वो गेस्ट हाउस का, इस स्ट्रक्चर के वजह से उधर वो फॉरेस्ट में फुल एक विशेष स्पीशीज़ ऑफ टाइगर्स रहते। तो इनका बड़ा हैलोजन लाइट और उसके लाइट में आपके जैसे यंगस्टर्स जाके डांस करना, लाउड म्यूज़िक करना, वो टाइगर की ज़िंदगी में कैसा इंटरफेयर कर सकते हैं, वो एक इशू है। और ऐसा बनाने के लिए वो मैनग्रूव्स को काटते, तो एक मैनग्रूव मर गया तो उधर का सॉइल का वो जो क्वालिटी है वो कैसा जा सकता है, और उधर के हवा का क्वालिटी कैसे डिस्टर्ब हो सकता है, और उसकी वजह से उधर साइक्लोन का फ्रीक्वेंसी कैसा इंक्रीज हो सकता है. दिस इज एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट. समझ गए आप? तो टूरिज्म हो गया, माइनिंग एंड फॉरेस्ट्री, इसमें ज़्यादा एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट की इश्यू आती है. लोग माइनिंग ऑपरेशन को, आपको हमने न्यामगिरी हिल्स का केस बताया, माइनिंग के लिए परमिशन दे दिया, बट उसके बाद पता चला कि उधर खाली प्राणी लोग और वनस्पति ही नहीं, मनुष्य में भी एक तरह के मनुष्य उधर जीते जिनको उसके बाहर जीने की एक्सपीरियंस तक नहीं है. तो वो एक है. दूसरा, फॉरेस्ट को नया फॉरेस्ट लगाना या फॉरेस्ट में इंटरफियर करना, ये बहुत चल रहा है. इंडस्ट्री के नाम में फॉरेस्ट में इंटरफियर करना. तो उस फॉरेस्ट एरिया में अगर आपका रास्ता जाना है तो कितना फॉरेस्ट उधर डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाएगा. तो उतना फॉरेस्ट डिस्ट्रॉय होने से बाकी इम्पैक्ट क्या है. वो खाली ट्रीज काटने की सवाल नहीं है. वो फॉरेस्ट ऐसे एक हिल के पर्च्ड एरिया में है तो उधर का वाटर टेबल, नीचे वाले वाटर टेबल पर क्या असर पड़ेगा. हम ये पढ़ते थे कि हाइडल प्रोजेक्ट्स, हाइड्रो इलेक्ट्रिकल प्रोजेक्ट करते टाइम एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट को कितना सुपरफिशियली इन लोगों ने किया, कितना ट्री बोल के, व्हाट टाइप ऑफ ट्री इन रिलेशन टू दैट एनवायरनमेंट. उधर का जो रिसोर्सेस है, इंटरडिपेंडेंस है, प्रकृति में कुछ भी अकेला नहीं रहता. ईओ विल्सन बोल के अमेरिकन नोबेल लॉरेट, उसने बायोडाइवर्सिटी बोल के एक बुक लिखा है, उसमें वो बोलता है लाइफ इज एन इंटीग्रेटेड बायोम. तो एक ट्री माने वो ट्री नहीं, उसके आजू बाजू में माइक्रोब्स रहते हैं, उस ट्री पर डिपेंड करके अनेक तरह के जीवराशि रहती है, राइट फ्रॉम बटरफ्लाई. यू नो हियर बिकॉज ऑफ द कॉन्क्रीट जंगल, पूना में कितने वेराइटीज ऑफ बटरफ्लाइज हैव डिसअपियर्ड. उडुपी में हमने एक स्टडी किया था व्हेन आई वाज अ स्टूडेंट. वी हैड some 170 varieties of butterflies. They came down to 30. I don't know how many are there now. I don't see them whenever I visit, you know. So this is how the एक project के वजह से उधर के बायोडाइवर्सिटी पर क्या असर होता है, which is one element of environment. Environment is not just what is around you. It has its biological resources. It has its invisible resources. विल्सन बोलता है एक ट्री के नीचे जो सॉइल है, उसके आजू बाजू में जो जीवराशि है, उनके साथ मिलियंस ऑफ माइक्रोब्स आर एसोसिएटेड. इधर तक कि एक बटरफ्लाई डिसअपियर होने से वो बटरफ्लाई के विंग्स के सहारे जो माइक्रोब्स रहते वो उस सॉइल पर क्या असर डालते. सी द इंटरकनेक्टेडनेस. सो एक एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट रिपोर्ट लिखते टाइम एनवायरनमेंट को क्या तरीके से उन्होंने सोचा, उसके बारे में आपको उधर डीपली पढ़ना पड़ता है. सो देर इज, इट इज़ वन रिपोर्ट विच हैज़ टू बी रेड बोथ विथ साइंटिफिक नॉलेज एंड लीगल नॉलेज एंड पॉलिसी नॉलेज. समझ में आया? एंड देन नॉट जस्ट लुकिंग एट what damage it is causing to the life, but also to the human being, and not just human. I told earlier anthropocentric. खाली human being को क्या लाभ है या लॉस है वो नहीं देखना, वो resources पर से, वो resources जो है उधर का पानी, उधर का soil, उधर की हवा, so that, and then interconnection with the vulnerable. अभी नर्मदा बचाओ आंदोलन में प्रॉब्लम क्या था, हजारों ट्राइबल लोग जो उस इकोसिस्टम में थे, उनको लैंड का रिकॉर्ड नहीं था, लैंड का रिकॉर्ड नहीं था, लेकिन उनका लाइवलीहुड उससे कनेक्टेड था. दैट इज व्हाई आई सेड माइनिंग एंड फॉरेस्ट्री, इनका इंटरकनेक्शन बहुत बार देखना पड़ता है, मेगा प्रोजेक्ट्स एंड दिस इंटरकनेक्शन. आई होप दैट्स क्लियर टू यू. तो एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट रिपोर्ट के बाद वो कैसे वो इकोसिस्टम का प्रोडक्टिविटी को, कैपेसिटी को प्रोटेक्ट करता है, और जैसे वो रिपोर्ट के बेसिस पर अगर वो प्रोजेक्ट हो गया या डेवलपमेंट हो गया तो वो डेवलपमेंट कैसे सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट हो सकता है, हाउ इट कैन बी सस्टेनेबल इफ दैट प्रोजेक्ट कम्स थ्रू. वी हैड नर्मदा बचाओ आंदोलन बिकॉज वी वर बिल्डिंग द सरदार सरोवर डैम. इट वॉज गोइंग टू सप्लाई वाटर टू द मेगा अर्बन सेटलमेंट्स इन a particular state. So there was lot of good there, no wonder, but the damage it was doing. So you must read these documentation and Arundhati Roy's writings and others, which gives interesting insight about the life of these tribal people who were affected by this. And finally Medha Patkar took up the movement campaign, and because environmental impact assessment never took the human element, human rights and a larger understanding. तो आप अगर इसको रोकना चाहते टू नेगोशिएट, चौकसी करने के लिए, किसके तरफ से चौकसी करना? वी सेड vulnerable people and the ecosystem. So how will you do that? पहले का रूल था एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट क्लियर होने के बजाय प्रोजेक्ट आगे नहीं बढ़ेगा और उस पर अपील कर सकते हैं और उस अपील को फिर रिव्यू करना पड़ता है गवर्नमेंट को। बट आज का रूल, अगर गवर्नमेंट किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट को अर्जेंट बोलता है तो उसको एक ही बार ऑब्जेक्शन ले सकते हैं और उसके बाद गवर्नमेंट आगे बढ़ सकता है। इसके बारे में थोड़ा कंट्रोवर्सी अभी चल रही है अंडमान निकोबार के डेवलपमेंट, टूरिज्म डेवलपमेंट के इशू में अभी कंट्रोवर्सी, इसके बारे में बहुत सारा पब्लिक डिस्कशन चल रहा है। बट हमारे पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से एक एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट रिपोर्ट कैसे दिखता है वो फर्स्ट हम स्टडी करेंगे। उसमें इम्पैक्ट हेल्थ पर होता है क्या, एनवायरनमेंट पर होता है क्या, पॉजिटिव क्या है, नेगेटिव क्या है, और अगर ये नहीं, अगर ऐसा इम्पैक्ट होता है तो मिटिगेशन का आइडियाज़ क्या है, व्हाट आर द इम्प्रूवमेंट्स, अगर ये प्रपोजल आगे बढ़ता है तो एनवायरनमेंट को कैसे इससे बेनिफिट है और उधर के समाज को क्या बेनिफिट है। फॉर एग्जांपल एयरपोर्ट के कितने मीटर के आजू बाजू में कुछ नहीं बिल्ड करना है, बट एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन को एक्सेप्शन किया है। वाई? बिकॉज एजुकेशन इज ऑल्सो ए ह्यूमन गुड, और एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन को इसीलिए एक्सेप्शन किया है। वन इज एजुकेशन गिविंग इट्स वैल्यू, सेकेंड इज दैट एजुकेशन में हार्मफुल कुछ नहीं है, उधर के एनवायरनमेंट को फर्दर हार्म नहीं कर सकता। इज दैट करेक्ट? इज द थिंग। सपोज खाली एजुकेशन देन इट इज गुड, बट इफ आई एम बिल्डिंग एकोमोडेशन, इफ आई एम नॉट मैन, ऑफ कोर्स people like us follow to the T, but अगर हार्वेस्ट वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग नहीं है, एनर्जी आई मीन हमारे लिए वी हैव एक्सेस एनर्जी ग्रिड बिकॉज वी आर यूजिंग सोलार, वी हैव यूज्ड एवरी रूफ सरफेस फॉर सोलार, तो अल्टरनेट, समझ में आया? So in that, in the environmental impact assessment that we submitted along with the seeking of the building permission to the Mantralaya, we attached this report and we conform to those standards. We have an STP plan. Usually we take people around, we don't have that much time. So in our own case study also we can tell you, near the airport we have been allowed, we had restricted FSI, so we built only 2 floors. अभी हमारे आजू बाजू में, अभी पहले सिम्बियोसिस लॉ स्कूल ही दिखता था, आजकल हम नहीं दिखते, आजू बाजू में हमसे टॉल बिल्डिंग्स आए हैं, बट वी स्टिल हैव नॉट प्रोसीडेड बिकॉज थियोरेटिकली वी फील दैट वी शुड नॉट ऐड मोर टू दिस सेंसिटिव इको जोन। तो आप कंस्ट्रक्शन का अगर देखें तो अगर सुंदरबन एरिया में कंस्ट्रक्शन अलाउड है या रिवर के कोस्टल रेगुलेटरी जोन में कंस्ट्रक्शन अलाउड है, allowed नहीं है generally, but little tourism operations can be there, boating and recreational accommodation. The rule itself give those exceptions, but that doesn't mean you can build a huge 10-storied building with the 4 commercial complexes and making money. No, it should be eco-sensitive, eco-friendly. So whether those rules are followed in the proposal or not, and then whether this environmental impact assessment has taken those issues into consideration is what you are going to find out. So iske steps kya hota hai? First is your proposal, second is wo proposal ko screen karte, and then they see what is the kind of environmental examination, officers aate usko exam karte, एंड देन द स्कोपिंग करते, स्कोपिंग देख के वो देखते इसका स्कोप क्या है, इसका इम्पैक्ट क्या है, इसके इम्पैक्ट से अगर एनवायरनमेंट को डैमेज है तो क्या मिटिगेशन स्ट्रैटेजी करना है, और उसके बाद रिपोर्ट प्रिपेयर होता है, वो रिपोर्ट को फिर रिव्यू कर सकते हैं हम। अगर वो रिपोर्ट बिल्डर के फेवर है और उसमें ये सब चीज़ें, इम्पैक्ट एनालिसिस भी सुपरफिशियली किया गया, मिटिगेशन के बारे में सोचा भी नहीं या सोचा बट वेरी बेसिक बता दिया, लाइक फॉर एग्जाम्पल 8 स्टोरी तक आप कर सकते हो, अभी बिजनेस वे का बिल्डिंग्स आ रहे हैं 8 स्टोरी तक कर सकते हो। उन्होंने फ्लाइंग जोन का सोचा है क्या? ये एयरफोर्स जोन भी है, एंड साउंड बूम्स के बारे में सोचा है क्या? सो उधर उसको यूज़ करने वाले लोगों के बारे में भी सोचना पड़ता है। उनके लिए अगर हेल्थ हैज़र्ड हो गया, सी इट इज़ नॉट जस्ट अबाउट रनिंग द ऑपरेशन, इट्स अबाउट होलसम वेल बीइंग, राइट? सो वो उसमें सोचा है क्या? देन उसके बेसिस पर वो फर्स्ट रिव्यू करते, अगर वो पास हो गया रिपोर्ट अवेलेबल है तो वी कैन ऑब्जेक्ट दैट एंड वी कैन पुट ए हियरिंग. टू ऑब्जेक्ट दैट वी शुड हैव दिस काइंड ऑफ ए सेंसिटिविटी, राइट. सो रिपोर्ट कैसे बनाते मैंने आपको बताया. रिपोर्ट में स्ट्रक्चर क्या है मैंने आपको बताया. आपके पास एक रिपोर्ट आ जाएगा एज ए सैम्पल. नाउ व्हाट, सी इन दैट रिपोर्ट फर्स्ट हु इज द वन हु इज मेकिंग दिस प्रपोजल. डॉक्यूमेंट का इंडेक्स रहता है, समरी रहता है, उसका डिस्क्रिप्शन रहता है, और वो प्रोजेक्ट अगर ऐसे पास नहीं हुआ तो अल्टरनेटिव्स क्या है वो भी बताते, विच आर द लीगल रूल्स विच आर एप्लीकेबल. बट उससे वो गवर्नमेंट ही बोलता है. एंड देन डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ द फिजिकल, वो डिस्क्राइब करते हैं क्या एनवायरनमेंट, पूरे इंजीनियरिंग टर्म्स, आर्किटेक्चरल टर्म्स, उधर के डिस्क्रिप्शन सब कुछ उसमें रहता है. फिर उधर का एनवायरनमेंट का मैनेजमेंट कैसा रहता है वो उसमें रहता है. रिस्क क्या है, उसका रिस्क को प्रिवेंशन क्या है, कॉस्ट क्या है, उससे बेनिफिट क्या है. एंड देन इस प्रोजेक्ट में क्या क्या पॉलिसी माने गवर्नमेंट का क्या क्या नीति है उसका कैसा फॉलो करते. एंड एनवायरमेंटल मॉनिटरिंग प्लान भी देते, कैसे लाइक एसटीपी कंस्ट्रक्ट करो, वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग करो, सोलर का ये लगाओ. अहमदाबाद में मैंने देखा एक अच्छा पॉइंट कि ज़ीरो एनर्जी कंस्ट्रक्शन. हर एक घर आजकल जो आ रहा है पूरा ज़ीरो एनर्जी कंस्ट्रक्शन. For the consumer it is so beneficial that they don't have to pay money on energy consumption, and for the environment also it is beneficial because there is no emission or no carbon, zero carbon kind of lifestyle. So इस रिपोर्ट जो आपको मिला उसका डेफिशिएंसी पता करो, कोई भी शॉर्ट कमिंग आपने पता किया तो उसके बारे में बता दो. हाउ सीरियस आर द शॉर्ट कमिंग्स वो देख लो. हमारे पास उतना टाइम नहीं है. अभी आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा, अभी आपको लंच पे जाना पड़ेगा, इसलिए मैं आपको बोलती हूँ आप ये अपने आप पढ़ो. और एक हियरिंग करना है तो आपके बीच में हमारा आइडिया ऐसा था, एक एक टेबल में एक जज होगा या ऑफिसर होगा और एक प्रपोजल देने वाला प्रोपोनेंट की तरफ से बात करेगा, दूसरा अपोज करेगा लाइक एन एनजीओ और पीपल्स ग्रुप, रेजिडेंट्स एसोसिएशन या कंज्यूमर्स एसोसिएशन होके अपोज करेगा या एनवायरमेंटल एनजीओ होके अपोज करेगा. सो एक एग्जाम्पल हम देख लेंगे. हियर व्हाट वी हैव गिवन इज कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ उमा बैरेज अक्रॉस द रिवर उमा नियर विलेज बोर्टा, तहसील मुर्तिजापुर, अकोला, महाराष्ट्र. मुर्तिजापुर तालुका का तहसील का. तो इधर देखिए ये पिक्चर भी कितना अच्छा लगता है. सो एज पर द गाइडलाइंस ऑफ द एनवायरनमेंट एंड फॉरेस्ट, उस टाइम उनका क्लाइमेट चेंज का एडिशन नहीं था, लॉन्चिंग ए मेजर डेवलपमेंट प्रोजेक्ट. वाटर रिसोर्स डिपार्टमेंट महाराष्ट्र रिटेन द नेशनल एनवायरनमेंट इंजीनियरिंग रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट, एक नीरी इंस्टीट्यूट बोल के है, उसके थ्रू उन्होंने ये असेसमेंट रिपोर्ट में सबमिट करने को बोला. दिस इज द प्रॉब्लम. इन द EIA commission usually engineers only sit, no lawyers sit, no people's representative is allowed, so it has to be more open. इसकी वजह से क्या होता है, टेक्निकल रिपोर्ट ऐसे बनाते कोई ऑर्डिनरी लोग पढ़ नहीं सकते. सो व्हेन वी आर ट्राइंग टू सी दे आर राइटिंग बायोलॉजिकल एनवायरनमेंट. साइंटिस्ट हो के अच्छे तरह से वो बताते क्या क्या स्नेक्स है, क्या क्या बर्ड्स है, बायोडाइवर्सिटी है, सोशो इकोनॉमिक है जो अभी SG में बताया, ESG में आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ द इम्पैक्ट. 2.7 देखिए, दिस इज मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट फॉर अस, पेज नंबर 7. उसमें क्या बोलते हैं, significant impact on river hydrology, water table, water quality, flora and fauna माने animals and plants, and then land use में क्या होता है, air quality क्या होता है, local community पर क्या होता है, wild life पर क्या होता है, फिर noise, air, water, these are environment का part होते हैं, pollution के बारे में, land environment पर क्या असर पड़ता है वो सब बताते. एंड देन मेन उनका क्या होता है, कैसे रिपोर्ट बनाते हैं, ऐसे बनाते कि ये प्रोजेक्ट के बिना ये पूरा प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व नहीं होने वाले. बट अभी आप ये एक देखिए पेज नंबर 8 पे, सोशो इकोनॉमिक एनवायरनमेंट. इट इज envisaged that implementation of welfare measures including provision of basic facilities would result into increase in so much quality of life index from 0.49 to 0.50. However, objective quality of life index needs to be ascertained after implementation of EMP. overall there would be positive impact, 0.1% को positive impact. I mean, so this is 0.01%, so in the quality of life. Then वो बोलते हैं कैसा ये environment management plan बनाएंगे, what is the mitigation plan, what is to be mitigated, 5.0 पर जाओ. Catchment area has been divided into different watersheds which are non-perennial. Under this, issues addressed are forestry, wood plantation, soil conservation and irrigation proposals. For effective implementation of environment monitoring plan, it would be necessary to establish and develop adequate facility for sampling and analysis. It will be desirable to set up an environmental monitoring cell and water resource department with competent trained staff and adequate instrumentation support. माने उधर वो होना चाहिए. It should be clearly reviewed by high level committee. अभी आपका प्लान होगा, आपका क्वेश्चन होगा इसमें, ऐसा कमिटी सेटअप हुआ है क्या, कितने बार रिव्यू हुआ है ये सब, और उधर के लोगों का कुछ न्यूज़ आइटम आया है क्या. अगेन मीडिया प्लेज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, दैट्स व्हाई वी आर लर्निंग मीडिया कैंपेन स्ट्रैटेजीज. या ऐसे रिपोर्ट्स यूनिवर्सिटीज़ ऐसे स्टडीज़ किए क्या. See, the problem is what happens there in such a big scale, करोड़ों हज़ारों करोड़ों का प्रोजेक्ट, और कैसे हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी काम करती है या मीडिया काम करती है, NGOs काम करते हैं, उनके बीच का सिनर्जी से ही ये पता चल सकता है. नहीं तो हमें ये प्रोजेक्ट के बाद इम्पैक्ट क्या हुआ है, रिव्यू क्या हो रहा है, वो पता नहीं चलेगा. अभी ये रिपोर्ट में we'll go back to the presentation quickly because now we are breaking for lunch. तो ये रिपोर्ट में no, not this, idle project. So what we thought was, here none of the elements were discussed, especially of the socio-economic and people's impact. Quality of life index was just mentioned as quality of life index. Its elaborate points were not there in terms of people's direct impact. Quality of life of what percentage of people, the critical insights, what percentage of people in that catchment area, how many people are there, those points are still not clearly visible here. तो इसको चैलेंज करके एनवायरमेंटल हियरिंग में आप पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड के सामने या एनवायरमेंटल एजेंसी के सामने आप जाओगे तो कैसे आप अपना एक्टिविटी करोगे. That is what we wanted you to simulate, that one is an officer and one is representing this. This is a government project, but government project में ऐसा scope कम रहता है because under our constitution there is a justification. If there is public interest project, we have little scope to question. However, in Narmada Bachao Andolan, NGOs did question. उन्होंने कैसे किया? They organized a very good campaign and then finally the World Bank had to tell the government that we will not continue funding you unless you resolve these issues. So that is how in Narmada Bachao Andolan a more moderation of the project came and environmental impact assessment and other land acquisition related rights issues were brought in. समझ में आया सभी को? Yeah. So when you read, and we have few more sample reports which we will provide in the training manual, some of you are interested in going further into this area can always make use of it. So that brings us to the end because the slide shows that please identify the shortcomings in the reports from the point of view of what you have learnt in terms of rights of people, rights of the rights related to biodiversity and under environmental protection rules in India, and then you write what are the key features which have been. See, when you compare 3-4 reports, you will see that in one it is quite clearly mentioned, in another it is not clearly mentioned, and there is no quality assessment of these reports because government is final. But then if any academic like us or researchers or activists like you questions it and starts comparing, then it will be very clear somebody who does a sincere job with the deeper understanding of this, with prior experience, will definitely do a more detailed job of this. And rights consciousness, one who has the rules consciousness, rights consciousness will do a more balanced job. That is what I would like you to take home as a message from this session. Any question? Anybody wants to share your experience of opposing would you like to share? Please, if you have any experience in that line. And Prakash Rao sir, would you like to talk about it in any manner? Yeah, you first talk, because you have been the campaigning part of Circo. There is rowing mic.
So is this specific to EIA or the projects related to it? EIA. Okay. So we'll not talk it about far-fetched things, but just away from here, there is a sanctuary, as we call it. They call it as a biodiversity park. It's called Salim Ali Bird Sanctuary, right? It's a classic case of, almost like about 110 different species of birds come in. All the way from Siberia. It's a pit stop before they go to Big Ben and other areas and stuff like that. Like people who are related to environment can appreciate like what is the biodiversity around it and what is that they enjoy. But for a common man who goes every day to office 9 to 5, getting stuck up in the traffic for 3 hours, right, has his 1/4 of his family time is already lost because the road is not enough, and then they get stuck. On top of it, as much as they keep stuck in the signals or in the traffic jam, is an extra pollution. So are you worried about the birds or are you worried about the pollution, right? Classic case. Then comes the government, says like, okay, I'm going to make a midway, which is all about metro. Now the problem is not on the ground, the problem is up. People don't even have a chance to jump out, right? Of course, that also happened recently in the metro, that metro was stopped and people had to walk on the tracks. Now here, it's a classic case, like, it's like a plot in a film, like, 2 people on the ground fighting, one guy is trying to elevate the problem from ground to the top, and then the biodiversity, small birds coming in, and then why the big hell out of a bird being lost. You see, so many human beings are suffering. Classic case, to solve the problem, alternate form of transportation, and then, well, people had a classic full Nagarway, straight metro that could cover almost 60% of the population, chose to route the traffic of the metro through a sanctuary. Now, when into the details, there is a preparation towards all these things, right? Up till now, bearing in mind, when this project was proposed, no environment impact assessment. We are not talking even about environment impact assessment being done. Before a project comes up, people know there are going to be people who are going to object to this, there's a sanctuary in it and stuff like that. So all the trees over there were cut by the supreme authority called Tree Authority Chairman. Okay? We were taking a 750 people member human chain on the roads of Nagar Road. Parallelly, the tree was cut. Once the destruction is over, then what do? Mitigation. Okay, we will take these 100, transplant it, right? And then proper lining was done or not for the metro, nobody knows. I was a part of the survey where I went and I said like, okay, we have to have a joint committee. You guys are going overboard. We need to have a joint committee and do walkthrough, right? So somebody came and said, here is a dargah ke samne, idhar se hum shuru karega. Satya, go and check how many trees are going to be felled. Impact on the ground, impact assessment. I'm not an impact assessment guy. So I walked along with the engineer and said like, okay, this is the way it is going to be, pillars are going to be formed, and said like, I just asked this question a guy, okay, I'm here for an impact assessment. Tell me, is this the route? Haan sir, either say 100 meters, either say 100 meters. So on the track that he took me was a very clear trees not being there. Either they've been cut or submerged. And then I said like, either 100 meters gaya to, here are the 200 trees that will be cut. That final plan mein aate hai sir. I mean, that's the context. And then finally we said like, you cannot take a 22 kilometers project, divide it into 1 kilometer and say it has minimal impact. You don't even need to have a EIA done. If it is of a project level, the first challenge is to make sure the project is good enough for an EIA. So people actually cut the project into 10 different projects that there is no need for an EIA mandate to come in. That's the first problems you will face. we say, okay, fine, all these are done and then we have demanded like this project cannot be executed by dividing such things, you need to have an EIA. Then comes the EIA. So there is a lot of struggle even before you ask for an EIA and what are all the workarounds that happens. And then once an EIA comes, then as ma'am said, it has a very clear structure. Once you had established the need for an EIA to be put out, then you have a base document on which you can fight. Until that time, the fight starts even before the EIA is my experience. Once an EIA comes, it's great. As ma'am said, there are clauses, there are sections, what is included, what is not included, and so on. So this is my limited experience. The fight starts even before the document comes. So be prepared. When you hear a noise, there is already some murmurs happened before. That's what it is. Thank you.
I won't take too much time. Thank you. I know everybody is waiting for lunch, so I won't take too much time. But I think what Gurpur ma'am has just shared with you all is something very helpful on this concept of EIA. And I think while EIA is something so essential today for any project, whether it's a construction project, whether it is a power project, or whether it's a road project, you name it. I have personally also supervised a few of these EIA projects, and there's one very small example which I wanted to share with you of an EIA of a project which was coming up with a coastal region in Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh many years back. A power plant, you know, the power that we all get in our rooms right now, how we are speaking, comes from what is called a thermal power plant. There are all these power plants all over the country. So there was a company, I won't take the name, who wanted to start up a power plant in that region. And right on the coastal, it is hardly about 2 kilometers from the sea. And they set up this power plant, or rather they applied for permission. And as ma'am is suggesting, you have to go through an EIA process if you have to set up a power plant. And so the agency which was involved, Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, Government of India, New Delhi. They are the agency who are looking at whether you are taking care of certain provisions. Madam has very rightly said that you have to show all the data related to what the impact of this power plant will do on that coastal region and so many different. So they went past that stage. The ministry also decided that we will give them permission to build this power plant. Everything happened. And at that point of time, I was working in Delhi and they called me and said that, can you come as an expert to look at exactly the point Madam was saying or whether Sir was saying about what is the impact of it on the local plants, animals, and more importantly, the socio-economic angle, which many of us do not consider. So I was asked to come and say that, can you go and visit that place and come back and tell us what is your opinion of this? So I went there, had a look, and we realized that that is also a very important bird sanctuary there. The power plant did not look at it. The people of that region were protecting that bird sanctuary for a reason. Not because they like birds. We all want birds to be in our neighborhood. But they were doing it for a reason. What were they doing it? Because the birds' droppings were falling into the lake there, and that was helping them to get fertilizer for their crops. Now this was the reason why there was a connect between those birds and the people who are living in that village, which the power plant did not even consider, or in the EIA report. So we wrote by saying that yes, this should have been considered. And so the long and short story about this is that eventually the entire power plant actually got scrapped because there was so much public outcry in that EIA process, which the people protested, saying that you are completely destroying our livelihoods, the socio-economic side. You are also destroying a bird sanctuary. And the power plant, I do not deny it is necessary. We all want power. You know, today we are living in an internet world. You know, 20 years back, power was required for only fans and AC. Today, what is power required for? This instrument. Yeah? We can't survive without this. Power is required for this. So power plants are needed, no doubt about it. But can we do it the right way? That is the question. So today there is a lot of talk about how can we develop this So Madam suggested solar power or so many other factors. So there are ways in which we can think about it by considering. So the EIA is always an important part. Thank you. That's what I will say.
So we have a lot more strategies to think about. Any question from the audience other than the experience shared? Yes, Lalit.
Yeah, I'll just share some more experience. When you're looking at an EIA, of course, look at what's happening. But there's one thing that you should really look at, and that is what is missed out. Let me share my experience or my learning. There's a village known as Teenasmad. Not many of you may have heard about it or may know about it. This village is had a dam coming up nearby. Now, this village, people in this village, interestingly, were not classified as project affected people. Do you know why? Because when the dam comes up, project affected people are people whose lands get submerged. But surprisingly, this village's land did not get submerged. So, the dam would submerge all the land around the village, but this village's land is not getting submerged. Their livelihoods get cut off, their social capital gets cut off, their human capital is cut off. In fact, if you look at DFID's livelihood pentagon, the entire pentagon is destroyed, but they're not project affected people. Nice, right? So that's one. The second thing that I have to suggest, and I'm speaking as a social worker. I'm a trained social worker. I am not a lawyer, right? I am not an engineer. I'm not one of those smart guys. I'm a social worker. I'm a grassroots person. There's a fantastic change in environment hearing or the public hearings laws, which says that a person who is attending it has to demonstrate local standi. Which means if there is a project which is happening in Orissa, you and I have to demonstrate how are we getting affected. The other dimension to that is, if you want to intervene, you have to empower the people there. To do that, we need to have conversations, as ma'am pointed out right at the beginning. So I know it's lunchtime. I know you guys are getting hungry. So I'm going to put an end to my tirade.
Very good. Very good dimensions from all the learned activists and experts. Prakash Rao sir, only one question. So who pointed this out? Means locus standi question of Lalit's. So who pointed out that there is such a negative or such a missing point in the EIA for the project to be scrapped?
Yes, so there were multiple agencies. I came in only because they wanted the scientific data around it. So, you know, there was already information that had come out. There was independent people, there were villagers, there were independent, in fact there was a person, he was an ex-IAS officer, and he was very particular about the environment. He was actually working with the central government. Post-retirement, he settled down in that region and he said, this is not correct. So he actually did a survey and he said that why is this coming up here? So he raised a lot of issues about this project, got in a lot of the people there who said that no, we should not be doing this. And perhaps there were a lot of media projections even in those days. So I think what ma'am is suggesting, that why media needs to also talk about it, also help the ministry eventually to take a decision. Because in all the EIAs, correct me if I'm wrong, usually they say, let's have a mitigation plan. Which means that you go ahead with your project, but you do these things. And in many cases that doesn't work. Like they often say that you plant 50,000 trees somewhere, you know, and your problem is solved. The problem is not solved. Just by putting some trees there, it doesn't get solved. Which is lack of information about what the real issue is, you know. So this is what happened eventually, and then the ministry said that we have to get a review of it done again. And eventually I think they scrapped it.
Thank you. So this shows two things. There is a correlation between what Lalit said and what Sir said. One is in terms of if somebody is not practical and they are making a project without taking into consideration that a village is reduced to an island in the submerged area, which shows the lack of sensitivity in those who are writing the report. That is where when we are reading, the critical reading is very important. Second is what Sir said in terms of a local connection, which is locus standi. That local connection is of an officer who came and settled in that area and became very connected to the community. So our next two quick inputs after the lunch are going to design a media campaign and how do NGOs design their approach to climate change issues. So thank you one and all for wonderful participation. Thank you, sir, for contributing to the research.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that very practical session on not only how to read and understand the EIA, but also to challenge it. Thank you very much. Before we break for lunch, I also want to welcome Dr. Prakash Rao. We've already heard his expert comments. Dr. Prakash Rao is the head of the Symbiosis Center for Climate Change and Sustainability, as well as head of Energy and Environment Department at the Symbiosis Institute for International Business. I request Dr. Shashikala, ma'am, to kindly felicitate him. Thank you very much, ma'am. We will now take a break for lunch. I request all the participants to come back and assemble back here by 2:30. A little over half an hour, so we do have quite a lot to cover in the second half of the day as well. You will be hearing from some more expert resource persons. So please do come back by 2:30. Thank you very much.